Okay, let's come to order. Welcome to our February work session. Any questions on our agenda for tomorrow? One thing that I failed to notify Ms. Michaels about, we do want to have Patrick McCarthy come and give just a very brief report on the retreat we did on Saturday. And last I heard, he was still coming tomorrow, so I don't know if we need to officially add that. I'll let you decide that, but somewhere up toward the beginning, we'll just give him a few minutes. Questions on the agenda? The consent agenda?
Dr. Burns?
Yes, sir.
The minutes reflect that the Director of Schools evaluation was a vote on amendment, all yes. Let's see here. Just took a quick look at this.
What page are you on there?
16. That's the amendment. Where is the vote for using that model?
Let's see here.
It's page 7 of the minutes.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I think that the vote on the original motion is probably what you're talking about, right?
Right.
The original motion as amended, do you want to be recorded as voting a different way?
Correct.
So you feel Mark Aaron is voting no on that?
To minutes.
Okay.
Okay, other questions on the consent agenda? Number 6, I think, well, I don't know. I think we've all gotten a written packet from Jim Bailey, Johnson and Bailey, rather, architects. I'm not exactly sure what he's going to talk about tomorrow, but I think it would involve the possibility of doing business with the system. And Mr. Gill and I talked about that and thought it was a reasonable request, given that it's a local firm that has a long history of doing schools. So we'll have that tomorrow night.
You know, in regards to that, I think we're all looking to get a great design and do what's best in the best interest of the taxpayer. And when we started with Binkley Garcia, they started out at a 3% design rate, and the prototype would be 3% from that point forward, which is what I think they did on Siegel, isn't it, Gary? And I asked Johnson Bailey, and I want them to address it tomorrow night, but they said they really couldn't match that, which is the reason we've continued with Binkley Garcia. I think we've gotten good service and good bang for our buck. But I don't think any of us would, you know, be opposed to using Johnson Bailey. They got a good reputation, but I mean, I think with respect to the dollar, they got to sort of earn our business, because I think they can do quality work. But anyway, they'll address that.
And I certainly made no we made no promises to them other than we give them a fair hearing. So we'll do that tomorrow. But be thinking about any questions you might want to ask Mr. Bailey. Takes us to number 8. Do that on
I was planning on that
Wednesday.
on Thursday, and also number 9 on Thursday.
That's Wednesday this week, right?
Wednesday,
Yeah.
pardon me.
No, I just want to make sure I was right. And number 10.
Facilities, termination of emergency medical helipad lease agreement since the relocation of Middle Tennessee Medical Center from North Highland Avenue to Medical Center Parkway. The city of Murfreesboro desires to terminate the lease agreement from the heliport behind Central Magnet School at East Lyle Street. All requirements of the lease termination agreement have been fulfilled by the city. Copy of the agreement is provided for the board's review. We'll obviously recommend that you approve the lease agreement termination.
Wayne.
They wouldn't pay anything for that agreement, were they?
No, they didn't pay us anything.
Are they going to return it back to the original condition? They had some.
Actually, I think they wanted, I think they're going to use that helipad for a batting cage and some
Oh,
other
okay.
things, so I think
I
it'll
knew it
actually
paved, yeah, okay.
provide us a service.
Other questions on number 10? Okay, takes us to 11.
Financial matters, school board's records to county archives, 117 boxes and 17 filing cabinets of old school board documents were moved to the county archive building from Central Magnet School last school year so that the county archivist John Lodell and the MTSU graduate students who assist him could evaluate the records that need to be kept. Mr. Lodell's spreadsheet summarizing the documents is provided. We're asking the board approval to destroy the red highlighted items and approval to give the county archive the responsibility for maintaining the other documents. Central office staff have reviewed the listing of the boxes to be destroyed, and we'll recommend that you do that.
Questions on that? That's something that, an issue's been sort of going on for some time, hasn't it?
It is. I told Jeff, I think that they look to us to provide more information to archives, so that they'll probably be happy that they're getting this. And we're happy to accommodate.
If they want us,
Where were all these stored?
In the old building out behind, yeah.
So will that building be emptied, or will it still have some records in it?
Now, what do we do? Are we doing furniture upgrades out there still?
We do furniture repair, desk repair, replace tops, all that kind of stuff.
what, I'm sorry, I didn't hear which building that they're in. The-
Out behind Central, there's a,
Oh, okay.
an
The old material.
old material
Yeah,
center behind
okay.
Central, yeah.
Well, if they want to take some of our paper, then we gotta let them have it, seems to me.
That's been around as long as Mr. Don Jernigan and I had it.
That, I can date that. It used to be a smoking area for us back there when I went to school.
Get rid of
And,
those,
and it was legal then too.
Oh, yeah.
get rid of those stone tablets and get a lot of space.
Okay, B,
Excel Energy Group change order and additional grant funding. The Excel Energy Group lighting sensor project change order is for an additional 252 remote sensors for a total of $75,600. $14,400 additional grant money from the state is available to pay for part of the change order. The remaining $61,160 can be paid from the GPS school capital outlay budget of $75,000, and we're going to recommend that you do that.
okay, discussion? Wayne?
The sensors, they've been pretty effective. They've worked the way we had planned for them to.
Yes, they have. We had some initial problems, because of interference and different things we couldn't see. And one school, we had some hearing aids that were being affected, had changed frequency things, but they're working very well now.
Other comments? C,
Stewarts Creek Elementary Tutoring Program. Mr. Zago is requesting the board approval of Stewarts Creek Elementary School PTO to fund 3 35-hour contracts for after-school tutoring in math and reading. 3 of his teachers will work these assignments. Their compensation will be similar to extended contract. PTO will reimburse the board the $600 in benefits, the cost of $100.20 for each of the 3 teachers. Recommend that they approve the Stewarts Creek Elementary School, that you approve Stewarts Creek Elementary School PTO to fund 35 contract hours for after-school tutoring, math, and reading for $600, and the benefits is presented.
discussion?
What brought this on? This is a little bit.
3 or 4 things. One, is extended contract money's drying up. Secondly, there's an interest, Richard's identified kids are at risk and kids that are in need of help, and it's difficult to find a funding source. And you can't ask people to work for free, so I think that I know that he went to the PTO officers and proposed it, and they were in agreement, so I think it's just remediation and additional work for those kids. You know, I can see, I think I had the same reaction you did kind of shame to have to offer PTO money to do this kind of work, but when we're talking again about it today, what better way to spend it than to spend it on, you know, helping the struggling kid, you know?
Students will sign up for this, like they did with the extended contract folks.
Yeah, do you know if they sign up or we just assign? I think they're sign up. Yeah.
I think he already has teachers involved.
No, he's talking about the kid, yeah, he's talking about the kids.
Students, yeah.
I'll track that information down between now and tomorrow.
Wayne?
Does the math include algebra?
Yeah, the fifth grade standard. I'll ask that too. I'll get a little more info.
And Mr. Zago's always got a
He's got a
new
lot.
idea, which
Yeah,
I
he
appreciate.
does, absolutely.
I feel a little conflicted, and you've already mentioned this.
Mhm.
This is something we ought to be doing as a system. If we had that extra $1,000 per student, I guess we could.
Yeah, I try to reflect back, you know, we've seen PTO money go for pavilions and playgrounds and walking trails and all that, and I thought, well, this is been different from that, but, you know, won't break the bank, but that's $2,000 about.
Right.
I think Ms. Jernigan had some.
I'm sorry, Don.
Mr. Gill, didn't we talk about a program here a few years ago about staggering teachers' hours, coming in early to do some tutoring, and then some of them staying later to do some tutoring? Wasn't that something that or was that an extended on?
No, we talked about doing some of that. A few high schools tried it a little bit. Did you try it a little bit, Mr. Tackett?
We've had some of that.
Yeah.
He had said it tried it a little bit.
At the high school level, the after-school is almost an impossible
Yeah.
task to get students to stay. I mean, that was the trouble we had now. And we have, and I think the high schools, middle schools, probably to some extent, have better flexibility with teacher schedules than you're gonna have in elementary schools. I would think. I can't see how.
We have had some before-school credit opportunities for high school.
Usually an AP or something like that. That's what we've done many times for the early morning class.
I'm not sure where that's at now, but as late as 2006, I think there were 13 different credit classes offered early day, and oftentimes they were vocational kinds of classes. I know Mr. Estes still, I'm confident, does with his auto shop, has a class that starts early day.
Right.
And that's very successful as far as I'm concerned.
Another thing's going on, the Y. The Y now provides after-school tutoring too, which is good. In some places, up to 2 teachers. I think it's based on the enrollment, the amount of money it's collected, the number of students enrolled, but anyway.
Other discussion? D.
Design funds for Eagleville school additions. Commission's budget committee has asked the board to recommend a funding source for the design of both phases of the Eagleville school additions. The savings from the Oakland and Whitworth Buchanan Middle School should cover the $350,000 needed to proceed with the design for both Eagleville additions. The budget committee would like the board to proceed with the design phase for both Eagleville additions so that we can have firm costs for these additions when the bids from Stewarts Creek High are open and the commission is finalizing the 2011-2012 construction and debt service budgets. Plan discussed at the commission's budget meeting on February the 10th, 2011 involving using any savings from Stewarts Creek High School bid is awarded as potential funding for Eagleville. $350,000 in design fees for both Eagleville additions will be funded internally within the building program until an end of the project cleanup amendment is brought forward for the Oakland, Whitworth, Buchanan Middle School projects to the board and the commission. And as you recall, originally we were scheduled to start with phase 1 at $5.3 million, and we were going to come back a year or two later with the second phase at what, $2.3 million. Second phase primarily was more classrooms. First phase was auditorium and give them a stage, enlarge cafeterias, add 12 classrooms, including science labs. So the commission was really amenable to the idea and said, go, let's bid it all at the same time, maybe we get a better bid. Hopefully we will, and hopefully we have, you know, the goal is to have substantial savings from Stewart's Creek because of when we're building and the times are amenable to that, and maybe we can get both phases of Eagleville started too. So we're gonna recommend that you appropriate that $350,000 for phase 1 and 2 design.
Grant, is Whitworth, Buchanan completely finished? Thought there was still some
Yeah, but I don't know.
drainage problems or something out there, that landscaping hadn't been done.
Gary,
Of course, maybe the time of year, it got a little bit late for that.
We're in the process of trying to get the landscape bonding and stuff released at this time. Everything's complete with the building itself, but we're in a process now of finishing the playing fields at both schools. So we're very close to wrapping this thing up.
You would not anticipate any major cost overrun on that?
No, we've pretty much processed stuff now. We're fighting over one little $25,000 change order, but we're getting that wrapped up.
Donald. When you talk about playing fields, you're talking about the softball, baseball fields, or are you talking about PE areas, or?
Softball and baseball fields. We have them sodded. It's a little bit nasty in there right now to get in there and finish them up. So we're kind of waiting the weather dries out a little bit.
Landscaping is something that, Mr. Gary and I have talked about before. That's something that we always seem to have lagged behind in with our new buildings. So maybe
One of the main problems is that we've experienced in the past, during the ribbon cutting ceremony, everyone wants the building dressed up. So we've gotten to the point that we just landscape around the front of the building, and we put the major landscaping off to the fall of the year and into the winter or even into the spring of next year, so that we don't end up with a bunch of dead trees. And the landscape subcontractor and general contractor try to get us to put it off so we don't have a battle over who's going to pay for the dead trees. They said, we'll put them in, but it's not recommended. So we've been holding off on that and then doing that after the opening in the fall of the year.
Other questions? Here, before we move on, remind us where we are with the high school. Vote's coming up on Thursday, I believe.
the high school, we've obviously been through health ed and budget. In both cases, we had 7-0 votes. With respect to forging ahead with construction, I think they've recognized there's a real need for the high school. You know, anyone that's played a part in selling it, I appreciate that. But also, I think that they're understanding we could, if it's not built, it's in all likelihood by 2013 we'll have 100 portables spread between 4 high schools, which is just not a doable deal. And anyway, I commend the commission. They've listened to us. The mayor has. He's worked with us, and I feel pretty good about them supporting Stewarts Creek High on Thursday night and moving forward. And if we have any luck at all, there'll be something left, and we can get started on Eagleville, a couple, 3-4 months after that.
Well, that's good news. I mean, we weren't at all sure that was going to be the outcome when we started this last
Right.
fall, so appreciate your efforts on that. Great.
I was looking at the Eagleville News, have a little paper out there, and they had looked at some of their sewer project, trying to get started. So this comes at a time that we may need, if the growth comes in with the sewer out there. So it looks like they might be headed in the right direction.
Right. The plan is, just so everybody understands it, is that we go to health ed next week, provided this, the board appropriates $350,000 for Eagleville design. And the design will take 3.5, 4 months. After that, we'll go out to bid for 45 days. So 5.5, 6 months from now, or say 6 months, because it will go before the full commission in March. 6 months from now, with a little luck, we'll know specifically, we'll have a design on Eagleville, we'll know what it'll cost to build it. Well, in the interim, we're forging, or simultaneously, we're moving ahead with Stewarts Creek. We'll go out for bid in about 2 months, I believe, 2.5 months for 45 days. Somewhere around the 1st of June, we'll know, or middle of June, we'll know how much Stewarts Creek's going to be to build. Well, a week or 2 or 3 after that, we'll have the bids in on Eagleville. And if it all falls in place, the county commission, I presume, provided they pass it, which I feel strongly they will go to bond market at the same time and borrow on Stewarts Creek, borrow on Eagleville, and any other projects. You know, they're talking about work at the jail, and there's 1 or 2 other things, some roads. I presume that probably in August they'll go down and borrow for all of those. So let's, cross our fingers and let's, everybody push hard to see that they're both completed.
Comments on that?
Just a question.
Yes, sir.
What is the projected budget for Stewarts Creek?
49,600,000.
I was thinking it was 50, right at 50 million. And both of them would go.
They'd only borrow probably about half of what's needed for Stewarts Creek. Go back the following year, borrow the second half, because it's basically a 2-year project, so they won't borrow the full 50 million. And again, we have hopes that it'll come in 44 or somewhere through there, so we can take that extra money and put it towards Eagleville. So hopefully the entire package will be 50 million.
Our percentage below our budget for our middle schools was what, Gary, do you remember?
I don't recall. I know we saved about $7 million on both of them. And that was, tagging 50 million.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking.
Okay, Wayne?
I'm just pleased with the optimism that the budget committee gave for both projects, because I think they really would like to see both projects taken care of at one time. So they were very, very supportive, and the comments were very, very supportive.
Just so I can clarify for myself, we don't have a mandate or assurance that there's $50 million for us to spend. If Stewarts Creek comes in at 44 million, do we have a assurance that we're going to get the money for Eagleville, or do we just have the hope that they'll go ahead and bump up to the 50 million as they kind of expected to spend on Stewarts Creek?
There's kind of, nobody wrote on a piece of paper if they come in at 50, you get them both, but that was it's kind of led to believe that that's what's going to happen, and I truly believe that will happen. Yeah.
I felt like it was kind of a contingency plan, that we hope this happens and everything falls into place.
Right. Gary, speak to this one thing, if you would. Come on, step up here, Mr. Clardy, please. Why, talk about the market today with respect to construction, why we think it'll come in cheaper than the 50 million, and why it's a good time to build again.
Well, the main reason is the economy is down, and the contractors are really looking for work. I had a local contractor to call me today who's a fairly good-sized contractor, and it asked me if I had any maintenance projects. He had 2 carpenters he's going to have to let go. Do I have any maintenance projects that he could come and just charge me for their time and their benefits? So things are really tight out there for the contractors. Another good thing during this time, you're going to get a good contractor because there's only good ones left because they can bond $50 million. Materials have held pretty steady, and right now to go ahead and build is a good time and go ahead and get people signed up to do the work, because we don't actually know what's around the pike the next year or so. So it would be our hope to get someone locked in at the low prices, so if prices start rising, we won't have to deal with that and spend the extra money. So labor and material are at some all-time lows right now. So it's an excellent time.
All right. Thank you. I think we're ready for 12.
The Instruction Department is recommending the 2011 summer school calendar. Summer school for secondary students will be offered at Blackman and Oakland High School. Middle school students will be at Oakland, Rock Springs Middle, pending 60 minimum student enrollment per site. This is what we've done the past 2 or 3 years.
Okay. Discussion?
What kind of enrollment do we have in summer schools now at the high school level?
I looked it up for you. We
1,000.
had 188 middle school last year and about 880 in high school.
880.
Are we having any trouble attracting teachers to teach? I know that was a,
Certain subjects.
yeah.
They want to work generally, but certain subjects getting enough math maybe
Right.
or something sometimes.
Hadn't changed.
Nope. 13,
Yes, sir.
revised policies. Policy.
I don't see a point of reading those. Tomorrow night will be our second and final reading on those. We've heard them once here at the board and once in committee, so. Unless there are any questions. And then 14 is the monthly set of policies that we're not changing, but we're just reviewing to see if there might potentially be changes. And that brings us to general discussion.
I've got a comment at some point I want to make.
Okay, Wayne?
I don't know if it's about this, Mr. Gill. Apparently, we received a pretty good pat on the back Thursday night for our inventory controls for all the school board property, and have thousands and thousands of items. 28, was that the number that, and some of that possibly could be things that just were scavenged and eventually thrown away, so I thought the inventory controls were pretty impressive.
Other Donald?
Mr. Clardy again. The recycling has made the paper here lately. What, would you care to explain our position there?
If he wouldn't, I will.
I was actually hoping I wouldn't get to ask that question because I'm glad I'm getting to answer it publicly, though. And I don't want to say too much because I think it's a valuable program and I don't want to jeopardize the program. But when we started this program and when we were sold the program, everyone that was in the meeting knew that this was going to be a continuing process until we got the younger children trained and got them up through the ranks. We have a lot of success in the younger ages in middle schools. In the high schools, not so good. So we knew that this was going to be at least a 3-year program of getting everyone on board. We are, at this point, we have some contamination. A lot of it's coming from neighborhoods where people are coming by and putting their trash in our dumpsters. We are also having some contamination from milk cartons, and it requires, during the recycling process, when the children bring the milk cartons up, it takes us a couple of extra people manning that station to dump the milk out. So they're rushing. So we might actually drop the milk carton part off of that. We were actually puzzled by Mr. Nolan's statements, both in the newspaper and on all the local Nashville news. And I spoke with the mayor the other night briefly about it, and he was also puzzled about the statements that were made. Mr. Nolan said that he told me that he was gonna cut the services off if we didn't get the thing cleaned up. Well, I don't recall that, and him telling me, because I guess at the time I had a lot going on and I didn't pay much attention to it. But from my perspective, Mr. Nolan himself doesn't have the power to cut it off. It would either have to come from the mayor or the commission. So the threat kind of seemed a little bit hollow to me, so I probably ignored it. Secondly, from the beginning, it's been mainly the solid waste people to educate our students. And obviously, the education process hasn't gone very well. So, you know, we're on board. I'm waiting on a list right now. In November, I was contacted about contamination. Mr. Gill got the email, was forwarded to me, but it was very lightly written. And I talked to the Mr. Nolan's assistant over there of education for the recycling. I wrote a letter. She had a volunteer that's going to go around and do some dumpster diving and figure out which schools. That was about the middle of November, and I haven't received a list back of those schools we're having problems with yet. So once I get the list, maybe I can address the problem a little bit better. We think it's a good program. We're all on board. We want to try to get it resolved, but we need to know where the problems are, and then we'll work on them.
Those dumpsters, do we purchase those out of our school budget, or are they?
County owns them, don't they?
Well, some of them, but we always include new dumpsters, and we've marked some that we've purchased. We've now, the maintenance folks have gotten to the point, that we, instead of buying new ones, we repair them. We can get one repaired for $250, repaint it, set it out there. It looks like a new one. We don't have to spend the $1,200 for the initial cost. Now, the contamination from the surrounding neighborhoods and things, most of our dumpsters are not fenced in. The ones we have in the city, they've basically, code makes us build a gate up, you know, to cover them up. And it's very difficult. I can kind of understand drivers don't want to open the gates. They don't want to get out of the truck. They just come up and dump. So the only option on that end is to build fences around the thing and keep them locked. And of course, we're, you know, it'd take a lot of money to do that for everything we've got and do it right. So we've kind of discarded that idea.
You know, it's pretty interesting that what we're collecting is paper, cardboard, milk cartons, aluminum cans.
Yes, sir. And
All right, and if aluminum can has some cold drink left in it, and carton has a milk left in it, and it leaks out and soaks the cardboard or the paper, that construed as contamination. I don't know that we're ever going to be able to totally control that, and if we are, it's going to take manpower on our part to make sure it's all emptied out. Somebody's going to have to check it, a custodian or somebody. You know, and like you say, and keep the public out. I mean, people come throw tires in there and empty their Christmas paper and throw old junk toys away. You know, unless we have it all fenced in, that's always going to be an issue. I don't know how we're ever going to totally resolve this issue.
Can we back up and let me ask a basic question? So each school has 2 dumpsters, a recycling dumpster and a non-recycling dumpster?
or it could be 4 depending on the number of trash, but at least 1 recycling dumpster and 1 other waste type.
And the issue is that the non-recycling trash is being put in the recycling dumpster, that's part of the issue?
Well, not from the school level so much,
but the
but from
neighbors.
neighborhood. And then the milk cartons, it's single stream, so everything goes in the same dumpster. And if you get 200 milk cartons in there with a little bit of milk in it, then it contaminates it. So that's why I say, and,
Get the milk.
yeah, we may forget the milk, so.
Okay. Other questions on this? I'm sorry, Gary. go
I
ahead.
was just going to say that we do have some very successful, I've been polling the principals and I've got all their comments in here asking 5 basic questions just to see how the program's doing. So Mr. Gill can evaluate if, you know, if it's actually worthwhile. Now, if we had to wash milk cartons out or wash cans out, I experienced that at home. You use more energy trying to clean your jars up than it's worth it. So we'll just have to see how it all works out.
Grant?
I'm actually on the Regional Solid Waste Board, and we discussed this matter at our meeting last month, and some of the same things you were talking about is our concerns on every place. So obviously they're looking at it to see the economics of continuing, you know, to mainstream some of that or just have a single unit. Yeah. So we're looking at it too, obviously.
I hope you'll straighten them out on the schools.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gary. I got a question. It's actually, a parent suggested this to me, and I said I would pass it along, about snow days. And it seemed to me like we might have talked about this years ago, but I can't remember. The idea of establishing snow routes where on a day like last Friday, for example, where the bulk of people probably could have gotten to school, could we go ahead and have school and tell the people in those areas subject to the icy roads that, you know, they have to make their own way or they get an excused absence? And I know there are all sorts of logistical problems with that.
Yeah, with respect to reporting attendance,
Right.
you know, we've talked about that a little, and maybe it's time to sit down and pursue subsequent discussion on it. And I'll do that. Let us put our heads together and we'll report back.
And I don't know how many days, this has been an unusual year, obviously, so I don't know how many days in a typical year this would even come up.
Right. But anyway, I'd like to study that.
Yeah.
A concern, I'm sure that would come up in that discussion is if you have that, just what the attendance figures would actually be on days like that.
Right.
And that's a real challenge
Good point.
for teachers. When you sit there with a 75% present rate, you got 25% absent, just how far you really can go ahead with what you do. And I think we just have to recognize where society is on this thing. They're going to take the same precautions that the school system's taking in most cases, I believe. And I would just be surprised if that would produce an attendance figure that makes it worthwhile for teachers and students to come to school. I think I'm just afraid we turn into more of a babysitting service that day as opposed to an educational day.
Well, I'm not endorsing the idea, but I thought I'd pass it
Okay.
along.
Yeah, we'll do some follow-up on that.
We had one day that I know Mr. Snell, or the announcement was if a bus driver feels unsure about the route, don't go. I just wonder, how did that day turn out as far as attendance?
You know what, it was down. That was that Friday. We went an hour late. I want to say it was about 85%. A few schools in the rural area were even lower than that, some of the city kids. There were 2 things that were said that might have led to that. One was, you don't feel it's safe and you don't want to bring them, keep them at home. And I'm sure some of the kids took advantage of that. And secondly, we gave bus driver discretion, but I don't know that any bus driver didn't cover all their route, did they, Mike?
There were some areas that they didn't cover because, you know, they're notorious, you know which areas those are going to be.
Right.
And in those situations, the parents knew that the bus wasn't coming down that road.
Right. But Ms. Jernigan, to answer your question, it was considerably lower, probably around 85%. Generally it's 93 or 94.
about those classes.
I'll tell you what, if you don't mind, I'm gonna bring it up tomorrow night, and I'd like to go through the whole thing again. Okay?
Anything else? I know, Harry, you had something you
I
wanted to
wanted to
say.
mention again, last week or the week before, we had a teacher, obviously in Coffee County, that was arrested and charged with weapons possession, also possession of drugs. Angel could give you the specifics on the charge. I mean, I've read them, and also public intoxication, which is a felony charge. And you're faced with, if you're in my position, and we talk these through each time, the deal is we got two choices. I don't think we leave a person that's carrying a weapon in the classroom. I think we got to do something, which leaves me with the following two options. Put them somewhere away from kids or suspend with or without pay. If we suspend without pay and it's pled down 2 or 3 months down the road, then we have to pay back pay. And like, for example, the one that occurred earlier this year, and put them at the teacher center, there's a felony charge. I'm pretty sure that'll get, I'm almost positive that'll be pled down to a misdemeanor, and we would have been paying back pay. So the question is, do we make them work in some capacity, either counting papers, stocking boxes, or something, or just suspend them, and in all probability, it'd be pled down, we'd be paying them back pay. And, you know, I welcome any direction on that. I mean, if the board feels that that's the way to go, you know, we can suspend and pay back pay. Otherwise, I hope you support me on that and just recognize why we do what we do.
Comments on that?
There's 136 systems in the state. I'm satisfied that other systems face the same thing. So I would be curious as to how much study from others, if there's a kind of a protocol that seems to be consistent with other folks.
We've researched that, and there are differing opinions with each one. Personally, I hate to suspend somebody for 4 months and come back and cut them a check for $15,000 when the court pleads it down because they don't want to go to trial. That's just my philosophy.
Milk carton.
Wash them out.
Sort milk. Clean out milk cartons. It's not a bad thing.
Tell you what.
Well, we've solved
That's
that
a
one.
policy innovation right there. That's why he's a master school board member, that sort of thinking.
Well, I think it's important for the public to recognize the dilemma that's there.
Yeah.
Because it is a call that doesn't have a good answer. I mean, that's the unfortunate part that we find that there's a ABC and you can't do none of the above. You have to do something, and none of them are really the kind of thing that you'd like to be able to do. Now, I guess the question is, what happens in this situation long term? I mean, we know where we're at this year. What happens long term?
I don't know. We've discussed that, and like, for example, parents aren't going to want them back in the classroom. And but the court's going to say, well, they have to be returned to their job. Right, Jeff? Right, Angel?
Good chance of that.
Yep.
Was there any consistency with the DAs around the state? You had any chance to poll them? Because that's, the DAs have some control, obviously.
We've done that through, we did through Truman some, and they log our requests, but not much success.
In a couple of these instances, we've learned about the arrest through media sources or after the fact. The board policy that we're going to vote on tomorrow night on second reading is going to give us some teeth that if that happens to be the circumstances, they'll be in violation of board policy and a terminating offense. Am I saying that correctly?
If they don't report.
If they don't report it.
Right.
And so if the circumstances were to transpire as they have, whether the arrest is within our county or outside of our county or whatever, if they're in violation of this new board policy that we'll hopefully approve tomorrow night, then we'll at least have those teeth. Perhaps in the face of this, there's something that can be said in introducing that to our employees and letting them know about that policy, and also reemphasizing just the importance that we place on their character and their standing in the community. Zero tolerance for our students, and not much different than that for our employees.
Well, you know, that's a good point, but you know, actually, and Ms. Barnes can speak to that, every year, we go through ethics trainings, we go over previous scenarios that have occurred and what the consequences were or what the results of the infraction was. But yet, you know, we still have annually one or two situations that there's kind of a reoccurrence. I don't know. It's frustrating.
Well, you're dealing with, what, 2,500 teachers, you're gonna have,
Close 4,500 employees, yeah.
other discussion? If not, we're adjourned.